Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku became close friends with hero killer Stain early? Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The smell of the Dagoba Municipal Beach Park was not something one ever truly got used to. It was a complex, layered stench, a geological survey of rot. The top notes were brine and dead fish, sharp and stinging. Beneath that lay the musk of wet rust, the metallic tang of decaying appliances, and the chemical sweetness of degraded plastic baking in the sun. And at the very bottom, the foundational scent of the place, was the smell of sweat. Specifically Izuku Midoriya's sweat. The sun had dipped below the horizon hours ago, painting the sky in bruises of purple and black, but the boy was still moving. He was a piston of determination, firing on fumes and desperation. His hands, wrapped in frayed athletic tape that had long since turned gray with grime, gripped the rusted edge of a massive, industrial refrigerator. 270. The number was a wheeze, escaping his throat like steam from a cracked pipe. Izuku's legs trembled, the muscles in his calves bunching and seizing with every step. The sand beneath his worn red sneakers shifted treacherously, stealing half the energy of every push. Young Midoriya, remember the glutes. The back is a lever, but the legs are the engine. The voice boomed from atop a pile of tires, cutting through the ocean wind like a foghorn. All Might, in his skeletal, deflated form, sat perched like a gothic gargoyle in a baggy yellow suit. He coughed, a wet, rattling sound, and wiped a speck of blood from his mouth before giving a thumbs up. I know. All Might. Izuku gritted his teeth. He shoved. The refrigerator groaned, metal screeching against sand, and moved another 6 inches. He collapsed. It wasn't a graceful fall. It was the strings being cut from a puppet. Izuku hit the sand face first, the grit instantly sticking to the sweat on his cheek. His lungs burned as if he'd inhaled fire. Excellent work for today. All Might transformed in a puff of steam, a momentary flash of the symbol of peace, buff, smiling, invincible, before checking his watch and deflating again with a sigh. However, I must cut our evening session short. There is a pressing matter involving paperwork at UA regarding my teaching position. Izuku pushed himself up to his elbows, spitting sand. Oh, of course. Thank you for everything today. All Might looked down at the boy. For a fleeting second, the number one hero's eyes shadowed with worry. He saw the trembling in the boy's hands, the dark circles under his eyes that rivaled All Might's own. The boy was trying too hard. He was trying to condense 3 years of muscle growth into 10 months. It was madness, but it was necessary madness. Rest, Midoriya, All Might said, his voice softer. The vessel must be ready, yes. But a cracked vessel holds no water. Go straight home. Eat proteins. Sleep. No detours. Yes, sir. Izuku chirped, forcing a brightness he didn't feel. He watched his idol leap away, bounding over the trash heaps with a grace that defied his emaciated form, vanishing into the city lights. Silence reclaimed the beach. The waves crashed rhythmically against the garbage. Izuku didn't leave. Not yet. He rolled onto his back, staring up at the stars that struggled to shine through the light pollution of Muzurifu. He raised his hand, clenching it into a fist against the night sky. I'm not ready, the thought whispered, insidious and cold. 5 months left. I can barely move the medium-sized trash. My body is still too small. Too weak. He thought of the entrance exam. He thought of Kaken's explosions, of the look in his eyes, that mixture of arrogance and undeniable capability. Then he thought of One for All. The power to smash the weather. The power to save everyone. Can I really hold it? He sat up, hugging his knees. The doubt was a physical weight, heavier than the refrigerator. All Might believed in him. That should have been enough. But All Might was a god walking among men. He didn't understand what it was like to be empty. To be a Deku. Izuku checked his phone. 9:45 p.m. His mother would be worrying. He stood up, his joints popping like firecrackers, and grabbed his yellow backpack. He began the trek home, his body screaming for rest, his mind screaming for more training. The city at night was a different beast than the city by day. During the day, Musutifu was bright, loud, and heroic. Pro-heroes patrolled the streets, waving to fans, their colorful costumes gleaming. But at night, the shadows stretched long and deep. The heroes thinned out, leaving the streets to the silence, and the things that crept within it. Izuku usually stuck to the main roads. It was safer, brighter. But tonight, his mind was so occupied with muttering calculations about protein intake and sleep cycles that he took a turn on autopilot, cutting through the labyrinth of back alleys near the shopping district to shave 10 minutes off his walk. It was a mistake. The alley was narrow, flanked by the backs of restaurants and old apartment complexes. Steam vented from pipes overhead, creating a humid, claustrophobic fog. The only light came from a flickering neon sign that buzzed incessantly. Bar, with the burnout. Izuku walked with his head down, mumbling. If I increase the repetition count on the squats but lower the weight, I might increase endurance without risking hairline fractures, but mass is the priority. Clatter. The sound of a trash can being kicked over snapped him out of his trance. Izuku froze. Voices drifted from around the corner, sharp and jagged. I told you, lady. The purse. And the jewelry. I ain't got all night. Please, a woman's voice, trembling, pitched high with terror. Take the money. Just let me go. I'll let you go when I decide you're empty. Izuku's heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. A mugging. Reason, cold, hard logic, told him to back away. He was quirkless. He was exhausted. He had no weapon, no license, and no authority. The correct protocol was to retreat silently, call the police, and wait for a pro-hero. His feet didn't listen to reason. Before his brain could finish processing the risk assessment, Izuku was moving. He rounded the corner, his backpack feeling like a lead weight. The scene was a tableau of urban predation. A woman, pressed against the brick wall, clutching a handbag to her chest. Looming over her was a man, hulking, wearing a dirty tank top. His skin was gray and pebbled like concrete, and his right arm had shifted, the flesh warping into a massive, jagged spike of bone. Hey! Izuku shouted. His voice cracked, squeaking in the middle, but it was loud. The villain turned. Beady eyes narrowed beneath a heavy brow. He looked at Izuku, scrawny, trembling, wearing a middle school uniform covered in beach sand, and laughed. It was a wet, ugly sound. Get lost, kid. Unless you want a new breathing hole in your chest. I'll leave her alone, Izuku stammered, stepping into the light. He raised his fists in the stance All Might had taught him, though his arms shook from fatigue. I called the police. They're on their way. It was a bluff. A terrible one. He hadn't even unlocked his phone, the villain sneered. I can smell the fear on you, brat. You ain't called nobody. The villain turned fully away from the woman, dismissing her as a threat, and focused on Izuku. You want to play hero? Fine. Let's see what you got. The man lunged. He was fast. Much faster than a man of his size should have been. Izuku's eyes widened. He tried to dodge, to use the footwork he'd practiced in the sand, but the pavement was hard and unforgiving. His exhausted muscles lagged by a fraction of a second. Slash. The bone spike grazed Izuku's upper arm, slicing through his uniform jacket and tearing a shallow line into his skin. The pain was hot and immediate. Izuku stumbled back, tripping over his own feet, and fell hard onto the asphalt. Weak, the villain spat, looming over him. He raised the bone spike high, ready to impale. You're nothing but a bug. Izuku stared up at death. Time seemed to dilate, slowing to a crawl. He saw the grime under the villain's fingernails. He saw the flickering neon light reflected in the man's eyes. I'm going to die here. I never got to be a hero. I never got to tell All Might. He squeezed his eyes shut and raised his arms in a futile attempt to block the blow. Schlick. The sound was wet. But it wasn't the sound of a spike hitting flesh. It was the sound of metal slicing through meat. Arg! The villain's scream shattered the alley's silence. Izuku opened his eyes. The villain was stumbling back, clutching his shoulder. A dagger, a jagged, wicked-looking thing, was embedded deep in the deltoid muscle, and then he landed. He didn't drop from the sky like All Might. He didn't arrive with a boom. He detached himself from the shadows above, falling like a shroud. He landed silently on the pavement between Izuku and the villain, crouched low, red scarf. Black hair tied back. A mask that looked like a skull without a nose. Hundreds of blades strapped to his body. The figure stood up slowly. The aura radiating off him wasn't the warm, golden pressure of All Might. It was cold. It was sharp. It felt like walking into a freezer full of hooks. You! The villain gasped, ripping the knife out of his shoulder with a grunt of agony. Blood sprayed. Who the hell are you? The newcomer didn't answer. He simply moved. If the villain had been fast, this man was a blur. He closed the distance in a single step. A katana appeared in his hand as if conjured from thin air. Clang. Slash. Thud. Izuku couldn't follow it. One moment the villain was swinging his bone spike, the next, he was on his knees. His tendons had been cut. Precise. Surgical. The villain tried to shout, but a gloved hand slammed his face into the pavement, shattering his nose. The dark figure stood over the groaning villain, pressing a boot onto the back of the man's head. He looked down with eyes that seemed to glow red in the gloom. Trash, the figure rasped. His voice was like grinding stones. Preying on the weak, purely for greed. You are a cancer. The figure raised his katana, reversing the grip. He was going to kill him. The intent was unmistakable. It saturated the air. Wait! The word left Izuku's mouth before he could stop it. The dark figure paused. The blade hovered inches from the villain's neck. Slowly, terrifyingly, the head turned. The man looked at Izuku. You speak? The figure's eyes narrowed. I saved your life, boy. Do not waste it by interfering with my work. Izuku scrambled to his feet, ignoring the stinging cut on his arm. His legs were jelly, but his mind, his analyst's mind, was racing. The fear was there, choking him, but curiosity and his inherent moral compass were warring for dominance. You incapacitated him, Izuku said, his voice trembling but gaining speed. You severed the patellar tendons to stop his movement, and you struck the brachial nerve to force him to drop his guard. He's helpless. The figure turned his body fully toward Izuku, stepping off the villain's head. The villain moaned into the dirt, unconscious or playing dead. And? The figure challenged. And that means he's no longer a threat, Izuku gulped. If you kill him now, it's not defense. It's just murder. It's not what a hero does. The figure let out a low, dark chuckle. He flicked the blood off his katana with a sharp snap of his wrist and sheathed it. He walked toward Izuku. Izuku wanted to back up, but his back hit the brick wall. He was trapped. The man stopped a foot away. He smelled of old blood, iron, and conviction. A hero, the man repeated, the word tasting like poison in his mouth. You think the people wearing capes and signing autographs are heroes? They are peacocks. They fight for money. For fame. They save people only when the cameras are rolling. He leaned in, his face inches from Izuku's. I am purging the sickness. This man, he gestured to the unconscious thug, is a symptom. But the disease is the society that breeds fake heroes. Izuku stared into the man's eyes. He recognized him now. From the deepest, darkest forums of the hero analysis boards, you're the hero killer. Stain's eyes widened slightly. You know me. I read about you, Izuku whispered. You operated in other prefectures. You target heroes you deem unworthy. And yet, Stain said, tilting his head, you do not run. You are quirkless, are you not? Izuku flinched. I watched you, Stain interrupted. I was on the roof. I saw you walk into this alley. I saw you hear the scream. I saw you realize you had no power. And yet you jumped in. Stain reached out. Izuku flinched, expecting to be cut. Instead, Stain's rough, bandage-wrapped hand grabbed Izuku's chin, forcing him to look up. Why? Stain demanded. Why throw your life away for a stranger? You were trembling. You knew you would lose. My legs. Izuku's eyes filled with tears. The adrenaline was fading, leaving only the exhaustion and the raw emotion. My body, it just moved on its own. I couldn't let him hurt her. I couldn't just stand there and watch. Stain went still. The wind whistled through the alley, carrying the distant sound of police sirens. Stain looked at the boy. Really looked at him. He saw the bruised knuckles, the sand on the uniform, the muscles that were tight and overworked. But mostly, he saw the eyes, green, terrified, but burning with a frantic, desperate need to be useful. To save. It was the same light he had seen in All Might years ago. The light he had been searching for in a world of darkness. Stain released Izuku's chin and stepped back. Your form was atrocious, Stain said suddenly. Izuku blinked, thrown off by the shift. Huh? You stepped in with your right foot, but your weight was on your heels, Stain criticized, his tone shifting from murderer to harsh instructor. If you had shifted your center of gravity forward, you could have ducked under his swing. You hesitated because you were thinking too much. I was analyzing his quirk, Izuku stammered, his natural habits overriding his fear. He had a mutation type. Calcium manipulation, likely. I thought if I could get him to overextend. Analysis is useless if you are dead, Stain snapped. In the streets, there is no time for thinking. There is only intent. The will to act. You have the will, boy, but you lack the conviction to do what is necessary. Stain glanced at the sirens getting louder. He looked back at Izuku. What is your name? Midoriya. Izuku Midoriya. Stain tested the name. You are weak. You are fragile. But you are not fake. Stain reached into his pouch and pulled out a small roll of bandages. He tossed them at Izuku. Izuku caught them reflexively. Wrap that arm. Infection kills slower than a blade, but it kills just the same. Stain walked to the alley wall and began to scale it, digging his boots into the crevices of the bricks with practiced ease. He paused at the top, crouching on the fire escape. Do not let the system rot you, Midoriya, Stain called down. Society will try to tell you that being a hero means following the rules, smiling for the cameras, and waiting for permission. They are liars. Wait. Izuku stepped forward, clutching the bandages. Why are you telling me this? You kill heroes. I kill fakes, Stain corrected, his voice echoing. I cull the garden so the true flowers can bloom. You might be a flower worth watering. Or you might be a weed. I haven't decided. He stood up, his red scarf whipping in the wind. If you truly wish to save others, if you wish to be a real hero, return to this alley tomorrow night. Midnight. Come alone, and if I don't? Stain's grin was visible even from the ground, a jagged, terrifying thing. Then you remain a sheep. And the wolves will eat you. With a swirl of cloth, he was gone. Izuku stood alone in the alley. The woman he had saved had fainted behind a dumpster. The villain was bleeding out on the pavement. The sirens were just around the corner. Izuku looked at the bandage roll in his hand. It was rough, cheap gauze. A real hero, he should tell the police. He should tell All Might. He had just met a serial killer. A wanted criminal. But as Izuku looked at the unconscious villain, he remembered how easily Stain had dismantled him. Not with brute force, like All Might, but with efficiency. With skill. Izuku looked at his own trembling hands. All Might was teaching him how to be a symbol of peace. How to be strong. But All Might had won for all. Izuku was currently nothing. Courage without power is suicide, he thought, echoing thoughts he'd had 1,000 times. The police car screeched to a halt at the mouth of the alley. Red and blue lights flooded the brick walls. Over here! I see a victim! An officer shouted. Izuku shoved the bandages into his pocket. He put on his best terrified student face as the officers approached, but his mind was miles away. He was thinking about tomorrow night. The next day passed in a blur. School was the same as always. Bakugo screamed at him for breathing too loudly. The teachers ignored him. The notebook in his bag felt heavier than usual. Training with All Might that evening was grueling. They were moving on to hauling truck tires. All Might was enthusiastic, spouting Americanisms and cheering Izuku on. Izuku tried to match the energy, he really did, but he felt a strange disconnect. All Might was the sun. He was bright, warm, and distant. He spoke of justice and spirit in capital letters, but Izuku's arm throbbed under his uniform where the villain had cut him. The pain was sharp, immediate, and real. It was a reminder of the alley. Of the shadows. Young Midoriya? You seem distracted, All Might noted as the sun began to set. Izuku flinched, dropping the tire he was dragging. Sorry. Just thinking about the exam. Nervous. All Might laughed, a booming sound. Nerves are good. They keep you sharp. But do not worry. With my training, you will breeze through the physical component, will I? Izuku thought. I can lift this tire now. But can I fight? Can I protect someone when the villain wants to kill me? He thought of Stain's blade. The speed. The prediction. Go home, my boy. Rest up. All Might gave his signature thumbs up. Yes. See you tomorrow, All Might. Izuku walked away. But he didn't go home. He went to a 24-hour convenience store. He bought a protein bar and a bottle of water. He sat on a park bench, waiting. He pulled out a new notebook from his bag. Volume 14. He opened it to a fresh page. He didn't write All Might. He wrote, Subject, the hero killer, Stain. Quirk, unknown, blood-related? Licked blade. Fighting style. Ambush/CQC/blade arts. Philosophy, the culling of false heroes. He tapped his pen against the paper. Observation, he didn't kill me. He saved me. Izuku waited until his phone read 11:30 p.m. Then, pulling his hood up, he began to walk toward the alleyway. His heart was pounding so hard he thought it might crack a rib. This was stupid. This was insane. This was betraying everything society stood for. But he needed to know. He needed to understand what Stain saw in him. And a darker, quieter part of him whispered. He needed to know how to fight like that. The alley was exactly as he left it, though the police tape had been torn down. The bloodstains on the pavement had turned black and dry. Izuku stood under the flickering bar sign. You came. The voice came from behind him. Izuku spun around. Stain was sitting on top of a dumpster, legs crossed, sharpening his katana with a whetstone. SHHHK, SHHHK, SHHHK. The sound was rhythmic and hypnotic. I didn't think you would, Stain admitted, not looking up from his blade. Most aspiring heroes are good at following orders. They fear the dark. Izuku swallowed. I want to be a hero. More than anything, I know. Stain hopped down. He sheathed the sword. But tell me, Midoriya. Why do you want to be a hero? To save people, Izuku said instantly. To be like All Might. To bring a smile to people's faces so they know they're safe. To be like All Might, Stain repeated, spitting on the ground. All Might is the only true hero in this garbage heap of a society. But you are not All Might. You are small. You are weak. I know. Izuku shouted, his frustration bubbling over. I know I'm weak. I've been told that my whole life. That's why I'm here. Izuku took a step forward, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. I have a power. Coming to me, Izuku said carefully, dancing around the secret of one for all. But I don't know how to use it. And even if I get it, I don't know how to fight. Yesterday, I almost died. If you hadn't been there, that woman would have been hurt, and I would be dead. He looked Stain in the eye. You said I had the will? But will isn't enough. I need to be strong. I need to be able to save people now. Not just when I'm the symbol of peace. I need to save them in the alleys, in the dark, where the cameras don't look. Stain stared at the boy. The raw desperation. The acknowledgement of the ugly side of heroism. A slow, terrifying grin spread across Stain's face. It wasn't the mockery he showed the villains. It was approval. Good, Stain growled. You understand. Heroism isn't about the spotlight. It's about the blood you spill in the shadows so others don't have to. Stain reached behind his back and pulled out a jagged, combat knife. He tossed it. It landed at Izuku's feet with a metallic clatter. Pick it up, Stain ordered. Izuku stared at the knife. It was heavy, scarred from use. A weapon. I can't use a knife. Heroes don't kill. A knife is a tool, Stain snapped. It cuts ropes. It pries open doors. And yes, it severs tendons. You don't have to kill to win, Midoriya. But you must be willing to inflict pain. If you cannot break a villain's arm to save an innocent's life, you are useless. Stain stepped into a combat stance. Pick it up. Izuku reached down. The handle was cold. It felt wrong in his hand, alien. But as he gripped it, he felt a strange sense of focus. He looked up at Stain. Teach me, Izuku said. I will not teach you how to pass a school exam, Stain warned, his voice low. I will not teach you how to wave to a crowd. I will teach you how to survive. I will teach you how to instill fear in those who would prey on the innocent. I will teach you to be the purge. Stain's eyes gleamed. But be warned, Izuku Midoriya. Once you step onto this path, once you see the world through my eyes, you will never be able to look at your pro-heroes the same way again. Izuku tightened his grip on the knife. He thought of the entrance exam. He thought of the villain in the sludge. He thought of the fear he felt yesterday. I don't care, Izuku whispered. I just want to save them. Stain laughed. It was a chaotic, genuine sound. Then let us begin. Lesson 1, Pain is your teacher. Stain lunged, and for the first time in his life, Izuku Midoriya didn't freeze. He didn't wait for a hero. He moved to meet the darkness, head-on. The training lasted until 3 a.m. It wasn't like All Might's training. There were no pep talks. There was no hauling trash. It was violence. It was physics. Stain taught him how to fall without breaking bones. He taught him how to read the shift in an opponent's shoulder to predict a punch. He taught him that fair fights were for idiots and corpses. Throw sand in their eyes. Stain roared as Izuku tried to fight honorably. Bite. Scratch. Use the environment. A hero who loses because of honor fails the person they are trying to save. By the time Stain called a halt, Izuku was covered in bruises. His uniform was torn in 3 new places. He was bleeding from a cut on his cheek. He had never felt more alive. You learn fast, Stain noted, wiping sweat from his brow. Your analytical mind, it is a weapon. You dissect my movements as we fight. Izuku panted, leaning against the wall. You favor your right side. And you have a blind spot when you pivot left. Stain raised an eyebrow. Observant. Exploiting that will keep you alive. Stain gathered his gear. Go home. Sleep. We meet again in 2 days. Same time. Wait, Izuku called out. Stain paused. Why? Izuku asked. Why are you helping me? You hate heroes. Stain looked back over his shoulder. The moonlight caught the metal of his mask. I hate fakes, Stain corrected. The world is full of people who want the title. They want the glory. They treat heroism like a job. It makes me sick. He gestured to Izuku. But you are reckless. You are foolish. You are weak. But your heart, it is pure. You possess the true conviction. You remind me of him. Stain didn't say the name, but Izuku knew he meant All Might. If I can sharpen you, Stain said softly, if I can turn you into a true hero, then perhaps there is hope for this rotten society yet. Become the hero who saves, Midoriya. Not the hero who performs. Stain vanished into the night. Izuku walked home in the silence. His body ached in a way that was different from the beach cleaning. That was the ache of growth. This was the ache of survival. He sneaked back into his apartment. He washed the blood off his face in the bathroom sink, wincing as the water hit the cuts. He went to his room and sat at his desk. He opened the notebook again. Under philosophy, he added a new line. True heroism is the result of action, not status. The law is secondary to the life. He looked at his All Might poster on the wall. The symbol of peace smiled back at him, beaming with light. Izuku touched the bruise on his cheek. I'll still be a hero, All Might, Izuku whispered to the poster. I'll be the greatest hero. But as he closed his eyes, he didn't see All Might's smile. He saw Stain's jagged grin. But maybe light isn't enough. Maybe to beat the darkness, you have to understand it. Izuku turned off the lamp. The room plunged into darkness. For the first time in months, he slept without dreaming. The human body is a machine of adaptation. If you burden it with weight, it builds muscle to carry the load. If you starve it of oxygen, it produces more red blood cells. But Izuku Midoriya was discovering that the body also adapts to duality. It learns to wear 2 faces. For the last 3 weeks, Izuku's life had been split down the middle by the rising and setting of the sun. By day, he was the bright, hopeful disciple of the symbol of peace. He hauled trash across the golden sands of Dagoba Beach, his skin bronzing under the sun, his muscles swelling with the promise of a power that could shatter the sky. All Might taught him about diet, about lifting with his knees, about the spirit of plus ultra. It was a world of protein shakes, thumbs-ups, and the unwavering belief that everything would be alright. By night, the world turned gray and cold. He was the apprentice of a ghost. He learned how to move silently through the labyrinthine back alleys of Muzurifu, how to breathe so that no one could hear him, and how to look at a human being and see not a person, but a collection of biological weak points. Stain taught him about leverage, about fear, and about the conviction required to draw blood. Izuku was tired. It was a bone-deep exhaustion that felt like lead in his marrow. But strangely, he wasn't collapsing. The duality was keeping him upright, like a suspension bridge held taut by opposing forces. 6 a.m. Dagoba Municipal Beach Park. Young Midoriya. The refrigerator is tipping. Izuku gritted his teeth, his sneakers digging trenches into the sand. The massive industrial fridge on his back swayed dangerously to the left. His legs shook violently, screaming in protest. I got it! Izuku wheezed. He adjusted his grip, shifting his center of gravity. But he didn't just push with brute force as he would have a month ago. Without thinking, his mind flashed to the night before, Stain's voice hissing in his ear. Balance is not about being rigid. It is about flow. Be water, not stone. Izuku exhaled sharply, dropping his hips by 2 inches and twisting his torso. The fridge stabilized instantly. He surged forward, carrying the appliance the final 10 meters to the designated pile. He dropped it with a metallic crash that sent seagulls scattering. All Might applauded, the sound like cannon fire. Excellent recovery. For a moment I thought you were going to become a sandwich. But you adjusted your footing beautifully. You're becoming quite intuitive with your body mechanics. Izuku collapsed onto the sand, his chest heaving. Thank you, All Might. The skeletal hero sat down on a pile of tires, handing Izuku a water bottle. We have 2 months left until the exam. The beach is nearly clear. You are ahead of schedule, my boy. But, All Might hesitated, his blue eyes scanning Izuku's form. You have more bruises than usual. And that scrape on your cheek, are you being bullied at school? Izuku touched the bandage on his face. It was from a sparring match with Stain where he'd failed to dodge a hilt strike. Just clumsy, Izuku lied, the taste of it bitter on his tongue. He hated lying to All Might. Every time he did, he felt a crack form in his heart. I tripped during a run. Be careful, All Might said gently. The vessel must be strong, but it cannot be broken before we pour the power in. Rest is just as important as training. I know, Izuku whispered. He looked at his hands. They were calloused, scarred, and trembling. If I told him, Izuku thought, looking at the symbol of peace. If I told him I was meeting the hero killer every night, he would stop me. He would arrest Stain. And he would be right to do it, but Izuku didn't speak. Because deep down, he knew that All Might could teach him how to be a symbol, but only Stain was teaching him how to survive the fight to get there. 8:30 a.m. Aldera Junior High. The classroom was a cacophony of adolescent noise, but Izuku sat in his bubbling silence. His notebook, Hero Analysis for the Future Volume 13, lay open on his desk. Before, these pages were filled with fanboy ramblings. Kamui Woods, super cool ultimate move! Or, Mount Lady, great crowd control. Now, the ink seemed darker. He was sketching a diagram of a theoretical fight between Eraserhead and a mutant-type villain. His pen moved rapidly, annotating the drawing. Eraserhead relies on visual contact. Smoke bombs are the primary counter. If vision is obscured, rely on sound. Footsteps on concrete versus asphalt. Target the knees. Erasure creates dry eye. Window of opportunity. 2 seconds every 40 seconds. DKU. The explosion slammed onto his desk, scorching the wood. Izuku didn't jump. He didn't shriek. His pen stopped moving, and he slowly looked up. Katsuki Bakugo stood over him, smoke curling from his palms, His red eyes narrowed in irritation. I'm talking to you, nerd! You've been staring at that notebook for 10 minutes without blinking. It's pissing me off. The old Izuku would have stammered. He would have apologized profusely, waving his hands, shrinking into himself to present a smaller target. But the Izuku sitting there today had spent the last 6 hours dodging knives in a pitch-black alley. Bakugo was scary, yes. But Bakugo wasn't trying to kill him. Not really. Izuku looked at Bakugo's stance. Right shoulder dipped. Left foot pivot. He's leaning forward. If he swings, it'll be a right hook aimed at my shoulder to shove me. Sorry, Kaken, Izuku said quietly. His voice was steady. Just studying. Bakugo blinked. The lack of fear confused him. It was a glitch in the matrix of their relationship. He scowled, leaning in closer, invading Izuku's personal space until their noses almost touched. You think you're tough now? Because you've been working out? Bakugo sneered, small explosions popping in his hand near Izuku's ear. Don't think I haven't noticed. You look like you haven't slept in a year. You're gonna die in the entrance exam, Deku. You're quirkless trash. Izuku looked into Bakugo's eyes. He saw the arrogance. But for the first time, thanks to Stain's lectures on the eyes of the prey, he saw something else. Insecurity. Bakugo needed Izuku to be weak to validate his own strength. Maybe, Izuku said softly. But I'm going to try anyway. Bakugo recoiled as if he'd been slapped. The quiet resolve was infinitely more infuriating than the crying, tch. Bakugo kicked Izuku's desk, knocking the notebook to the floor. Whatever. Just stay out of my way. He stomped off to his seat. Izuku bent down to pick up the notebook. As he dusted it off, he noticed his hand was steady. Stain was right, he thought, a chill running down his spine. Fear is a choice. And I'm too tired to choose it anymore. 11:45 p.m. The alleyway. The night air was humid, clinging to the skin like a wet sheet. Izuku stood in the center of the training ground, a dead-end alley surrounded by derelict warehouses. He wore a black tracksuit he had bought from a thrift store. It was nondescript, blending into the shadows. He had taped his wrists and ankles, just as Stain had shown him, to support the joints during high-impact landings. From the darkness above, a shadow detached itself. Stain landed silently, 5 feet away. He didn't say hello. Catch! A wooden bakken, training sword, spun through the air. Izuku caught it, his reflexes sharp. Tonight, we discussed the geometry of violence, Stain rasped. He drew his katana, the dull training one, though it was still heavy steel. Attack me? Izuku hesitated. I can't beat you. I didn't ask you to beat me. I asked you to attack me? Hesitation is death. Move! Stain surged forward. The speed was terrifying. It wasn't the supersonic blur of All Might. It was the predatory burst of a striking cobra. Izuku reacted on instinct. He raised the bakken to block a downward slash. Clack! The impact vibrated through his arms, rattling his teeth. Wrong! Stain shouted, kicking Izuku in the stomach. Izuku flew backward, skidding on the dirty pavement. He gasped for air, curling in pain. You blocked, Stain lectured, circling him like a shark. You met force with force. You are a child. I am a killer. If you block me, I will break your guard, and then I will break you. You are small, Midoriya. You cannot afford to be a wall. You must be a door. A door? Izuku wheezed, pushing himself up. When the enemy kicks the door, you do not hold it shut, Stain said, mimicking a lunge. You open it. You let their force carry them through, into the void. Stain sheathed his sword and stood relaxed. Again. Without the weapon. Come at me. Izuku gritted his teeth. He ran at Stain, winding up a punch, a replica of the smash he dreamed of throwing. As he threw the punch, Stain didn't block. He simply took a half step to the left, and hooked his foot behind Izuku's ankle. At the same time, he grabbed Izuku's wrist and pulled with the punch. The world spun. Izuku's own momentum betrayed him. He slammed face first into the concrete. Velocity plus gravity, Stain whispered, crouching by Izuku's head. That is your quirk right now. Use the enemy's desire to hurt you against them. Predicting their hunger is your greatest weapon. Izuku groaned, rolling over. Prediction relies on data. I have to know what they'll do. People are predictable, Stain said, standing up and offering a hand, a rare gesture. Villains, especially. They are drunk on their quirks. They rely on their biggest guns. The man with the fire quirk will always start with fire. The man with the strength quirk will always try to punch. They possess no subtlety. Stain pulled Izuku up. We are going for a run, Stain announced. A run? Like cardio? No, Stain pointed to the fire escape ladder that climbed the side of the warehouse. Verticality. The streets are a trap. The roofs are freedom. If you cannot traverse the skyline, you are just another civilian waiting to be saved. For the next 2 hours, Izuku learned that parkour was not about jumping. It was about trust. Trusting that the rusty pipe would hold. Trusting that his shoes would grip the brick. Trusting that the gap between buildings wasn't as wide as it looked. Stain moved like liquid shadow. He vaulted over AC units, swung from clotheslines, and scrambled up walls with claw-like movements. Izuku scrambled behind him, slipping, scraping his knees, breathing hard. They stopped on the roof of a 10-story office building. The wind was high up here, whipping Izuku's green hair around his face. Musitafus stretched out below them, a grid of golden lights. Look at it, Stain commanded, standing on the ledge, his red scarf billowing like a banner of blood. Izuku joined him, keeping a safe distance from the edge. It's beautiful. It is a facade, Stain spat. Look closer. See the hero agencies? The massive billboards? Mount Lady advertising shampoo. Best genus selling denim. They have turned salvation into a commodity. Stain turned to Izuku, his eyes intense. Tell me, Midoriya. If a hero saves a child solely because he knows the cameras are watching, is he a hero? Izuku thought about it. He thought about the complex morality. The child is still saved, he murmured. Does the motive matter if the result is life? Yes. Stain roared, startling Izuku. Because when the cameras are off, when the paychecks stop, those fakes will not be there. When the darkness truly rises, only those with conviction will stand. The rest will flee. Stain gripped Izuku's shoulder. His fingers dug in hard. You have the heart. I feel it. But you are naive. You think you can exist in this world without getting your hands dirty. You think you can become the symbol of peace without understanding war. Stain reached into his vest and pulled out a knife. Not a training knife. A combat knife. Keep it, Stain, I told you. Keep it. Stain shoved the sheathed blade into Izuku's pocket. Not to kill, but to remember. Metal is honest. It does not lie. It does not seek fame. It simply is. Be like the knife, Midoriya. Sharp. Silent. Unyielding. Stain turned away. Go. 2 nights from now. Do not be late. The next day the revelation. The seed of doubt had been planted. I call the fakes. Stain's words echoed in Izuku's mind as he sat in the school computer lab during lunch. He had always known Stain was a criminal. A vigilante. But he had deliberately avoided looking at the details. He had focused on the training, on the philosophy, on the fact that Stain had saved him. He was compartmentalizing. But he couldn't do it anymore. Izuku typed into the search bar, the hero killer Stain victims. He hit enter. The screen filled with faces. Turbo Hero, Ingenium. Izuku's heart stopped. Ingenium? The Ida family's pride? He wasn't dead, but the report said he was paralyzed from the waist down. Career over. Water hose duo. Dead. Leaving behind a child. First-class hero, native. Hospitalized. Critical condition. The list went on. 17 dead. 23 permanently disabled. Izuku felt bile rise in his throat. He covered his mouth, his eyes watering. These weren't just fakes. Some of them, maybe, were vain. Maybe they liked the fame too much. But did they deserve to die? Did they deserve to be butchered in the street? Ingenium was a good hero. He had a team. He did charity work. He followed the rules. Stain crippled him. Izuku stared at his hands. The same hands that Stain had corrected the posture of the night before. Elbow in, Midoriya. Protect your center. I'm. Izuku whispered, the horror crashing over him like a cold wave. I'm being trained by a monster. He clicked on a video link, a grainy security camera footage of Stain fighting a hero named Buster. It was brutal. It wasn't a fight, it was an execution. Stain moved with the same fluidity he taught Izuku. The same counters. The same psychological warfare. Izuku saw himself in the movements. He saw the parkour he had practiced on the rooftops. He saw the knife grip he was learning. He slammed the laptop shut. He felt sick. He felt complicit. He had allowed his desperation for strength to blind him to the source of that strength. He wanted to be a hero so badly that he had made a deal with the devil. But Izuku touched the pocket of his trousers. The knife Stain gave him was there. You have the true conviction, Stain had said. You are not a fake. Stain believed in him. In a twisted, horrifying way, the hero killer was the only person besides All Might who truly saw potential in Izuku. I have to stop him, Izuku whispered to the empty lab. He couldn't just call the police. Stain would vanish. He was too good too fast. He would go underground, and then he would kill again. He trusts me, Izuku realized. He thinks I'm his student. A dangerous, reckless plan began to form in the chaotic brilliance of Izuku's mind. He wouldn't just turn Stain in. That wouldn't work. Stain was a fanatic. To stop a fanatic, you couldn't just arrest his body. You had to break his ideology. You had to prove him wrong, and to do that, Izuku had to fight him. 2 nights later the confrontation. It was raining. Of course it was raining. The sky wept over Mizudafu, turning the alleyway into a slick, reflective river of grime. Izuku stood under the flickering bar sign. He wasn't wearing his training sweats. He was wearing his school gym uniform. He looked small, wet, and miserable, but his eyes were burning. Stain arrived at midnight exactly. He dropped from the fire escape, his boots splashing in a puddle. Rain is good, Stain said, his voice muffled by the downpour. It muffles sound. It washes away scent. Tonight, we practice tracking in adverse conditions. Stain turned to walk deeper into the alley. No, Izuku said. The word hung in the air, sharper than any blade. Stain stopped. He didn't turn around immediately. His shoulders tensed. No? Stain repeated slowly. I'm not training tonight, Izuku said, his voice trembling but growing louder. I looked you up. Properly. Stain turned around. His face was unreadable behind the mask, but his eyes were narrowed. I saw the list, Izuku continued, stepping forward. Ingenium. Water hose. They were heroes. Good heroes. They were cogs in a broken machine, Stain dismissed, waving a hand. Ingenium prioritized his agency's ranking over the purge of true evil. He sought to be a celebrity. He saved people. Izuku shouted. He had a sidekick team that lowered the crime rate in Tokyo by 15%. He inspired people. And you paralyzed him? To save the soul of society, the infected limbs must be cut off. Stain roared back, his calm demeanor cracking. You are looking at the small picture, Midoriya. You see one man. I see a culture of narcissism that is creating a generation of weaklings. If heroes do not fear judgment, they become complacent. I am that judgment. Who are you to judge? Izuku screamed, tears mixing with the rain on his face. You're just a murderer. You're not saving the world, you're just terrifying it. If I become strong your way, if I become a hero who rules by fear, then I'm no better than a villain. Silence descended. The rain drummed against the dumpsters. Stain looked at Izuku. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, he reached for his katana. I am disappointed, Stain said quietly. The sadness in his voice was more terrifying than his anger. I thought you understood. I thought you were different. But you have been brainwashed by the system, just like the rest. Shing, the blade came out. The killing intent flooded the alley, thick and suffocating. It wasn't the restrained aura of training. This was the aura of the hero killer. If you cannot see the truth, Stain whispered, then you are a weed. And weeds must be plucked, he charged. Izuku didn't scream. He didn't freeze. Right shoulder dip. Blade low. He's coming for the legs to incapacitate. Izuku moved. He didn't use All Might's training. He didn't use a smash. He used Stain's training. As Stain swept the blade low, Izuku jumped. He kicked off the wall, verticality, and twisted in the air. He landed behind Stain. Stain spun, reversing the blade for a backward stab. Izuku predicted it. Velocity plus gravity. Izuku dropped to the ground, sweeping his leg. It wasn't strong enough to knock Stain down, but it disrupted his footing on the slick pavement. Stain stumbled. Izuku scrambled back, putting distance between them. He pulled the combat knife from his pocket. He held it in a reverse grip, trembling. Stain recovered instantly. He looked at Izuku, and then at the knife. You hold the blade, Stain said, his eyes gleaming with a strange madness. But do you have the will to use it? I won't kill you, Izuku said, his teeth chattering. But I won't let you kill me either. I'm going to become a hero. A true hero. One who saves everyone, even you. Save me? Stain laughed. It was a bark of incredulity. You arrogant child. Stain blurred. He was too fast. Izuku parried the first strike, metal shrieking against metal. The impact numbed his arm. He dodged the second. The third grazed his ribs. Stain was toying with him. Testing him. Is that all? Stain taunted, driving Izuku back toward the dead end. Where is your conviction? Strike me. If you want to stop me, you must cut me. No! Izuku saw an opening. Stain had overextended on a thrust. A lethal blow was open, the neck, but Izuku didn't stab. He flipped the knife in his hand, grabbing the blade, cutting his own palm, and slamming the heavy pommel of the handle into Stain's solar plexus. Thud. It was a perfect strike. Stain's breath hitched. He staggered back, coughing. Izuku stood there, blood dripping from his hand where he gripped the blade. I won't become you, Izuku panted. I'll use your skills. I'll use your tactics. But I will never use your ideology. That's my conviction. Stain stared at the boy. He looked at the blood dripping from Izuku's hand, blood spilled to avoid killing an enemy. The hero killer straightened up. He sheathed his katana. The killing intent vanished. You are a fool, Stain said. But there was no malice. Only a grudging, deep respect. You handicap yourself. You choose the harder path. Stain walked over to Izuku. Izuku flinched, raising the knife again. Stain ignored the weapon. He reached out and placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder. You passed. Izuku blinked, the adrenaline crashing. What? If you had tried to kill me, I would have ended you, Stain said simply. A hero who kills because it is easy is no hero at all. You held on to your morals even when facing death. That is rare. Stain stepped back, fading into the shadows of the fire escape. Our time is done, Midoriya. I have taught you how to fight. Now you must decide how to live. Wait! Izuku called out. Where are you going? Hosu, Stain said. There are many fakes in Hosu City. They require correction. Stain, don't. Izuku pleaded. I'll stop you. If you go there, I'll come for you. I'll become a hero and I'll arrest you. Stain paused on the ladder. He looked down, his eyes glowing red in the dark. I look forward to it, Izuku Midoriya. Grow strong. Become the only one worthy of killing me. With that, the hero killer was gone. Izuku fell to his knees in the rain. He dropped the knife. The sound of it hitting the puddle seemed to echo the shattering of his innocence. He had survived. He had learned. But he had also let a monster go free. I have to be ready, Izuku whispered to the rain. When we meet again. I have to be ready to win. 2 weeks later, the day of the exam, the sun rose over Dagoba Beach. It was blindingly bright. The beach was unrecognizable. The trash mountains were gone. The sand was pristine, glittering like gold dust. The horizon stretched out, unbroken and blue. All Might stood by the railing, his true form hidden in the steam of his transformation, but his smile was visible. Oh my goodness! All Might bellowed, buffing up into his muscle form. You did it! You cleared the entire beach. And you even cleaned up the area outside the designated zone. Truly, a superhero effort. Izuku stood atop the pile of trash he had moved to the loading trucks. He was shirtless, screaming his victory to the heavens. His body was unrecognizable from 10 months ago. He was ripped, his muscles dense and corded. But beneath the surface, the changes were deeper. He wasn't just a vessel for power anymore. He was a weapon forged in 2 fires. One golden, one blood red. He jumped down from the pile, landing with a silent, rolling grace that All Might didn't notice in his excitement. Young Midoriya, All Might said, his voice turning serious. He plucked a strand of golden hair from his head. You have proven yourself. You have built the vessel. You have shown the spirit. All Might held out the hair. This is it. The torch is yours. Eat this. Izuku looked at the hair. It was ridiculous. It was gross. It was the key to his dreams. He took it. As he looked at it, he didn't just think about saving people with a smile. He thought about the alley. He thought about Ingenium. He thought about the terrifying burden of being the one who has to stand between the light and the dark. Stain said I was weak. He said I was naive. Izuku swallowed the hair. I'll show him. I'll show the world. I'll take this power, and I'll use it to save everyone. Even the people who think they don't deserve saving. He looked up at All Might, his eyes fierce. I'm ready, Izuku said, and for the first time, he truly believed it. Not because he had a quirk, but because he knew that even without one, he could survive the night. Then let's go. All Might shouted, pointing toward the UA High School shimmering in the distance. To the entrance exam. Go beyond. Plus ultra. Izuku shouted back. He grabbed his bag. Inside, hidden in a secret pocket he had sewn himself, was the combat knife Stain had given him. He wouldn't use it in the exam. He might never use it again, but he kept it. A reminder. A steel promise. The fakes die. The true heroes endure. Izuku Midoriya began to run toward his future. His stride was long, his breathing rhythmic. He wasn't just running. He was hunting his destiny. The massive glass barriers of UA High School reflected the morning sun with an intensity that felt almost judgmental. To the hundreds of students gathering at the gates, this was the threshold of their dreams. It was the golden gate to celebrity, power, and status. To Izuku Midoriya, it looked like a fortress. He stood at the base of the long, paved path, his yellow backpack straps digging into his shoulders. He wore his black middle school uniform, the fabric stiff with starch, hiding the latticework of bruises and healing cuts that mapped his torso. Out of the way, Deku. The voice was low, guttural, and familiar. Katsuki Bakugo shouldered past him, not even bothering to look back. He walked with the swagger of a king claiming his throne. Good luck, Kaken, Izuku murmured. Bakugo paused. He turned his head slightly, his red eyes narrowing. He was expecting the flinch. He was expecting the stutter. But Izuku was just standing there. His posture was different. His feet were shoulder-width apart, weight balanced on the balls of his feet. His hands weren't wringing together. They hung loosely at his sides, near his pockets. Don't die, Bakugo scoffed, turning back around and marching toward the building. Izuku watched him go. Left leg favors the push-off. He's tense. He'll start big. The analysis came unbidden, a reflex honed in the dark. Izuku shook his head, trying to clear the night mind and bring back the day mind. He was here to be a hero. A student. Not a vigilante apprentice. He took a step forward, his eyes scanning the crowd. He saw mutations of all kinds, horns, wings, elongated limbs. It was a carnival of power. They all looked so soft, the thought whispered. It was a terrible thought. Izuku hated himself for it immediately. These were his peers. They were the best of the best. But after spending weeks dodging knives and having his face pressed into the gritty asphalt of back alleys by a man who radiated pure murder, the students around him seemed to move in slow motion. They were laughing. They were checking their phones. They had no situational awareness. He was so distracted by his critique of their defensive perimeters that he didn't see the uneven paving stone. He tripped. Gravity took hold. In the past, he would have flailed. Now, his body reacted. Chin down. Roll. Disperse impact. But before he could execute the break fall, he stopped. He was floating. Are you okay? Izuku looked up. A girl with a round face and brown bob-cut hair was smiling at him. Her hand was hovering over his backpack. I stopped you with my quirk, she said cheerfully, tapping her fingertips together to release him. He landed gently on his feet. It's bad luck to fall on the first day, right? Izuku stared at her. 5-point contact activation. Gravity negation. Vestibular disruption potential. High. If she touches you in a fight, you lose all leverage. Counter strategy. Keep distance, secure wrists. Hey. The girl waved a hand in front of his face. You zoned out. Izuku blinked, forcing a smile. Sorry. I was just surprised. That's an incredible quirk. The tactical applications for mobility and debris control are immense. The girl blinked, her smile widening. Oh. You think so? I'm Uraraka Ochako. I'm super nervous. Midoriya Izuku, he replied. He resisted the urge to scan the perimeter for threats. This was a girl being nice. This wasn't a trap. We should go inside. The orientation is starting. Right. Let's do our best, Midoriya-kun. She pumped a fist and ran ahead. Izuku watched her go. She's nice, he thought. Stain would say she's naive. He'd say she's walking into a meat grinder without armor. He clenched his fist. The phantom sensation of the combat knife he had left at home weighed on his palm. I have to protect people like her. That's why I'm here. The orientation hall. The auditorium was vast, dark, and filled with the nervous energy of 1,000 teenagers. Everybody say hey. President Mick's voice hit them like a physical wave of sound. The pro-hero stood on the stage, bathed in spotlights, screaming his heart out. Silence answered him. Tough crowd. President Mike shrugged. All right, listeners. Let's get to the main event. The practical exam. As President Mike explained the rules, 3 types of robots, point values, city zones, Izuku muttered under his breath. Robotics. Likely localized sensors. If they are mass-produced, the joint shielding will be the weak point. Standard alloy plating, impact-resistant, but susceptible to leverage. Excuse me. A hand shot up in the row in front of him. A tall boy with glasses and stiff blue hair stood up. The spotlight hit him. I have a question. The boy announced, his voice booming with authority. The pamphlet says there are 4 types of villains, but you only explained 3. If this is a misprint, it is a shameful error for a prestigious school like UA. He then whipped around, pointing a finger directly at Izuku. And you! With the curly hair, Izuku froze. The spotlight didn't move, but it felt like the entire room turned to look at him. You've been muttering this whole time. It's distracting. If you're here to mess around, then you should leave immediately. The hall tittered with laughter. Izuku looked at the boy. He recognized him. Tenya Ida? The younger brother of Ingenium. The image of the turbo hero, broken, bleeding, paralyzed in a hospital bed, flashed in Izuku's mind. He knew who did it. He knew why he did it. Stain had called Ingenium a fame-seeker, and here was his brother. Standing tall. Rigid. Following the rules to the letter. Chastising others for not adhering to proper decorum. A cold feeling settled in Izuku's stomach. He's exactly like his brother. He's exactly the kind of hero Stain hunts. Izuku didn't shrink back. He didn't apologize profusely as he might have a month ago. He felt a strange mixture of pity and defensiveness. I was analyzing the enemy, Izuku said. His voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the murmurs. Ida blinked. What? The robots, Izuku said, staring Ida in the eyes. I was calculating structural weaknesses based on their size and presumed weight. This is a battlefield simulation. Information is ammunition. Izuku leaned forward slightly, his eyes losing their shine for a fraction of a second. If you aren't analyzing the threat before you engage, you're going to get hurt. Silence rippled through the immediate area. Ida looked taken aback, his mouth slightly open. He hadn't expected the stuttering boy to bite back with tactical logic. Ida adjusted his glasses, flustered. I see. Perhaps I misjudged your intent. Okay. President Mike shouted, breaking the tension. Thank you, Examinee 7111, for the clarification. The 4th robot is the zero-pointer. It's an obstacle. A gimmick. If you see it, run away. Use your legs, listeners. The orientation continued, but Ida kept glancing back at Izuku. Izuku stared straight ahead. He wasn't here to make friends. He was here to survive. Battle Center B. The mock city was a marvel of engineering. Skyscrapers, paved roads, traffic lights. It was a full-scale urban environment. Izuku stood at the heavy iron gates, surrounded by other examinees. He was stretching. Deep lunges. Rotations of the hip. He looked at his hands. One for all. He had swallowed the hair this morning. He could feel something. A hum in his veins. A heat in his stomach. But it was dormant. He didn't know how to turn it on, and All Might had warned him. Your body is ready, but your control is 0. If you use this power at 100%, you will break. He couldn't risk breaking his limbs on the first robot. If he shattered his arm, the exam was over. I have to fight without it, Izuku realized, terror clawing at his throat. I have to fight robots with my bare hands until I absolutely have to use the quirk. He looked around. Uraraka was there, taking deep breaths. Ida was revving his engines. And start. Present Mick's voice screamed from a tower high above. The students hesitated. They were waiting for a countdown. There is no countdown in a street fight. Izuku moved. Before anyone else processed the command, Izuku was a green blur sprinting through the opening gates. What are you waiting for? Present Mike yelled. There are no countdowns in real battles. Run! Run! That kid is already ahead of you. The stampede began behind him, but Izuku already had the lead. He turned the first corner and skidded to a halt. A one-pointer. A wheeled drone, about the size of a motorcycle, with a single red eye and grasping mechanical arms. Target acquired. It lunged. Izuku didn't have super strength. He didn't have explosions. But he had 2 months of getting beaten up by the fastest killer in Japan. Linear attack pattern. Speed moderate. Izuku sidestepped the lunge. As the robot passed him, he didn't punch it. He saw the exposed cabling at the neck joint where the head swiveled. He reached into his pocket, not for a knife, weapons weren't allowed, but for a tool he had improvised. A heavy, metal pen. He jammed the pen into the exposed servo mechanism. Crunch. The robot screeched, sparks flying. It spun out of control, crashing into a wall. 0 points. He hadn't destroyed it, just disabled it. Damn it, Izuku hissed. Disabling isn't enough. I need to destroy. He looked around. He needed a weapon. He saw a loose length of iron piping protruding from a construction site facade. He grabbed it, braced his foot against the wall, and heaved. The pipe groaned and snapped free. It was a 3-foot bar of rusted iron. Stain Lesson 4. The environment is your armory. Izuku hefted the pipe. It felt good. Heavy. A 2-pointer, a scorpion-like walker, scuttled around the corner. Izuku didn't wait. He charged. Die. Wait, that was Bakugo's line. Smash. No, he couldn't use that yet. Izuku didn't scream anything. He exhaled sharply, a hiss of breath through his teeth. He slid under the robot's raised tail, using the momentum of his sprint. As he slid, he swung the pipe upward with every ounce of his core strength. Clang. The pipe smashed into the robot's underbelly, the sensor array. Glass shattered. The robot seized up and collapsed, smoking. 2 points. It works, Izuku panted, scrambling to his feet. I can do this. The observation room. A wall of monitors displayed the chaos of the exam. The teachers of UA sat in darkness, grading the potential of the next generation. Lots of firepower this year, Midnight noted, licking her lips. That explosion kid is terrifying. The engine boy has excellent mobility, ectoplasm added. In the back, a small creature, Principal Nizu, sip tea. But power isn't everything. We need to see ingenuity. Eraserhead, Shota Aizawa, stood with his arms crossed, his bloodshot eyes darting across the screens. He wasn't looking at the flashy quirks. He was looking at the margins. His eyes stopped on screen 4. Who is that? Aizawa asked, his voice dry. All Might, sitting in the corner in his muscle form, though shrinking slightly, perked up. Ah! Young Midoriya! Aizawa zoomed in on the screen. The green-haired boy was fighting a 3-pointer. He didn't use a quirk. He was scaling the robot. He moved like a monkey, finding handholds on the chassis. He reached the robot's head, wrapped his legs around its neck, and used the iron pipe to pry off a panel. He then ripped out a handful of wires. The robot deactivated and fell. The boy rolled off before it hit the ground, landing in a crouch, eyes already scanning for the next threat. He's quirkless? Aizawa asked. Well, not exactly. All Might sweated. He fights like a vigilante, Aizawa muttered, his interest piqued. That's not dojo training. That's dirty fighting. He's going for the eyes, the joints, the sensors. He's not trying to overpower them. He's executing them. Is that bad? Midnight asked. It's efficient, Aizawa said. But disturbing for a 15-year-old. He moves like he's expecting the robots to pull a knife on him. Battle Center B 12 minutes in. Izuku was exhausted. His score was okay. 28 points. It wasn't enough. The other students were destroying robots by the dozen. He saw a laser beam slice through 3 robots at once. He saw Uraraka float a pile of robots and drop them. He was fighting for scraps with a metal pipe. His knuckles were bleeding. His uniform was torn. He was breathing so hard his chest felt like it was full of broken glass. I need more points. I need to find a cluster. He turned a corner and ran straight into a scene of devastation. Robots lay in heaps. And in the center, looking bored, was another student. Izuku turned back. He had to keep moving. Rumble. The ground shook. Dust fell from the fake buildings. A shadow fell over the street, swallowing the sunlight. Izuku looked up. And up. And up. The 0-pointer. It was a monstrosity. A robot the size of a skyscraper, grinding down the main avenue. Its treads crushed the pavement to powder. Its mere presence generated a windstorm. It's huge! Someone screamed. Run! Forget the points. The students broke. It was a stampede of panic. They turned and fled, quirks forgotten in the face of overwhelming fear. Izuku's instinct, honed by fear, was to run with them. Stain had taught him, do not fight a losing battle. Survive to strike another day. He turned. He took a step. Ow! A small cry. Barely audible over the grinding gears of the Titan. Izuku stopped. His body froze. The night mind told him to move. The day mind told him to look. He looked back. Uraraka was trapped under rubble. A piece of a destroyed building had pinned her leg. She was struggling, her face pale with terror. The 0-pointer was looming over her. One more step, and its treads would crush her. The other students were gone. A hero who loses because of honor fails the person they are trying to save. But what about a hero who runs? Stain's voice echoed in his head, twisted and dark. The fakes flee. The true heroes act. All Might's voice echoed, bright and loud. Meddling when you don't need to is the essence of being a hero. For the first time, the two voices didn't contradict each other. They harmonized. Izuku didn't think about points. He didn't think about the pipe in his hand. He dropped it. He turned around and ran toward the monster. Hey! Get away from her! Izuku screamed, though the robot couldn't hear him. He needed height. He couldn't reach the head from here. He sprinted toward the building next to the robot. He didn't slow down. He hit the wall, planting his foot. Verticality. He ran 3 steps up the wall, grabbed a window ledge, and hauled himself up. He vaulted onto a fire escape. He climbed, faster than he had ever climbed in the alleyways. His fingernails tore. His muscles burned. He reached the roof of the 4-story building. The 0-pointer's face, a mass of cameras and sensors, was level with him, but still 20 meters away. The robot raised a massive hand to swipe at the ground, aiming for Uraraka. No! Izuku leaped. He pushed off the edge of the roof. He was airborne. A tiny green speck against the metal giant. In midair, he felt it. The ember. The torch. He reached down into the depths of his stomach and grabbed the fire. He didn't try to control it. He didn't try to trickle it out. He let it flood him. Power. Pure, unadulterated, white-hot power surged through his right arm. It felt like his veins were being filled with molten lead. The sleeve of his uniform ripped instantly from the pressure of his expanding muscles. Smash! Izuku punched the robot's face plate. The impact was silent for a microsecond. Then, the air exploded. Metal crumpled like wet paper. The shockwave blew the glass out of every window in the mock city. The massive head of the zero-pointer caved in, detached from its neck, and was sent rocketing backward. The recoil was horrific. Izuku felt his right arm shatter. Not just a break, it felt like the bones had turned to gravel. He was thrown backward by the force, spinning in the air. The robot fell, crashing away from Uraraka. Izuku was falling. The adrenaline vanished, replaced by a wall of pain that made his vision go white. He looked at his arm. It was purple, twisted, and hanging uselessly. My legs. He tried to activate one for all in his legs to cushion the fall. But he couldn't. The pain was too much. He had used everything. He was falling from 4 stories up. I'm going to die. I saved her, but I'm going to die. He saw the pavement rushing up. Slap. A hand struck his cheek. He stopped falling. He floated inches from the ground. Release. Uraraka, pale and vomiting from nausea, pressed her fingers together. Izuku dropped the final 3 inches. He lay on the ground, staring up at the sky. His arm was screaming. His legs were numb, but he was alive. The dust settled. Silence returned to the city. Then, the murmurs started. Did you see that? He took down the zero-pointer. With one punch? But he was just using a pipe earlier. Izuku tried to move. He couldn't. A shadow fell over him. It wasn't a robot. It was a small, elderly woman. Oh dear, recovery girl said, clucking her tongue. You really overdid it, didn't you? She leaned down. Are you okay, Sonny? Izuku looked at her, tears streaming down his face from the pain. But he smiled. A jagged, pained smile. Is she okay? Recovery girl looked at Uraraka, who was being helped up by Ida. She's fine. Thanks to you? Izuku closed his eyes. Points, 28. I failed, he thought as darkness took him. But I didn't run. 1 week later, Dagoba Beach. The envelope sat on the table. Izuku stared at it. His mother, Inko, was pacing in the hallway, muttering nervously. Izuku's arm was in a cast. Recovery girl had healed the worst of it, but the bones were still fragile. She had warned him. If you do that again, you won't use that arm ever again. He picked up the envelope. It was heavy. He went to his room and locked the door. He sat at his desk, the same desk where he plotted takedowns and hero analysis. He tore it open. A holographic disc fell out. All Might appeared. I am here. As a projection, the hologram explained the written exam. Izuku passed easily. It explained the villain points, 28 not enough to pass. Izuku's head dropped. He knew it. He had failed. He would have to go to a regular high school. He would have to give one for all back. But, All Might shouted. A hero's school does not only judge combat. The video shifted. It showed Uraraka in the negotiation room, begging Present Mike to give her points to the plain boy. Izuku's eyes widened. And? All Might continued. There are rescue points. A scoreboard appeared. Izuku Midoriya, villain points, 28. Rescue points, 60. Total, 88. Welcome, Izuku Midoriya. You have made it. This is your hero academia. The hologram faded. Izuku sat there, tears soaking his cheeks. He did it. He was in. He wiped his eyes. He stood up. He didn't run to his mom immediately. He grabbed his hoodie. He had to tell his teacher. The alleyway midnight. Stain was waiting. He leaned against the brick wall, arms crossed. Izuku walked in. He was wearing his cast. I got in, Izuku said softly. Stain didn't clap. He didn't smile. I saw the news, Stain said. Reports of a student destroying the zero-pointer. They say he broke his own body to do it. Stain stepped forward, looking at Izuku's cast. Self-sacrifice, Stain murmured. The most potent form of conviction. But also the most foolish. If you break yourself to save one, who saves the next 10? I had to, Izuku said. She was going to die. I know. Stain looked up, meeting Izuku's eyes. You did well. It was a simple phrase, but from the hero killer, it was a knighthood. But do not think this victory means you are safe, Stain warned. Yue High School, it is a factory. They take raw iron like you and they try to paint it gold. They will try to make you care about ratings. About costumes. About merchandise. Stain's eyes burned with fanaticism. Do not let them domesticate you, Midoriya. You are a wolf. Do not let them turn you into a dog. I won't, Izuku promised. I'll learn what they have to teach. I'll get stronger. But I won't forget the alley. Good. Stain turned to leave. Stain! The killer stopped. Are you really going to Hosu? Stain didn't look back. The work continues. Just as your work begins. When we meet next, it will not be as master and student. It will be as hero and villain. Make sure you are strong enough to stand on your side of the line. Stain leaped onto the fire escape and vanished into the night. Izuku stood alone. He touched his cast. He had passed the exam. He was going to UA. He was All Might's successor. But as he walked out of the alley, his shadow stretched long and thin, looking less like a hero and more like the monster who had just left. The uniform of UA High School was a masterpiece of gray blazer and dark teal trousers, accented with a red tie. It was a symbol. To the public, it represented the bright, shining future of heroism. It commanded respect. Izuku Midoriya stood in front of his bathroom mirror, adjusting the tie. The fabric felt stiff against his neck. It felt like a costume. Beneath the pristine white dress shirt, his body was a tapestry of violence. There were fading yellow bruises on his ribs from being thrown into a dumpster 3 nights ago. There was a healing cut on his forearm where he had been too slow to dodge a switchblade during a practical test in the slums. His knuckles were permanently roughened, the skin callous and hard. He looked at his face. The large green eyes were the same, but the skin around them was tighter. He didn't look like a nervous fanboy anymore. He looked like someone who slept with one eye open. Izuku! You're going to be late. His mother called from the kitchen, her voice laced with happy tears. Coming, Mom! Izuku smiled at the mirror. It was a practiced smile. Show them the sheep, Stain's voice rasped in the back of his mind. If they see the wolf, they will cage you before you can hunt. He grabbed his yellow backpack. Hidden in the bottom, wrapped in a gym towel, was a small, weighted blackjack. Stain had insisted. You can't bring a knife to school, Midoriya. But a roll of coins in a sock? That is just laundry. Izuku left the house, stepping into the sunlight. 8:20 a.m. UA High School, Class 1A. The door to Class 1A was massive. It was designed to accommodate students with gigantification quirks, but to Izuku, it felt like the gate to a different world. He slid the door open. Remove your foot from the desk. Ha! You trying to tell me what to do, Four Eyes? The noise hit him instantly. Tenya Ida was gesturing robotically at Katsuki Bakugo, who was lounging with his feet up, radiating hostility. Izuku stepped inside. Bakugo's head snapped toward the door. For a second, the old reflex kicked in, the sneer, the spark of explosions. Deku, Bakugo growled. Good morning, Kaken, Izuku said. The classroom went quiet. It wasn't what he said, it was how he said it. There was no stutter. No flinch. Izuku walked past Bakugo's desk without shrinking away. He walked with a fluid, silent gait, his eyes scanning the room, windows, exits, lines of sight, before settling on a seat behind Bakugo. Bakugo stared at him, confused. He was used to the pebble kicking itself out of his path. The pebble wasn't supposed to just roll by. Oh! It's the plain boy. Uraraka Ochako appeared at the door, beaming. Midoriya! You made it! She rushed over. That punch at the entrance exam was amazing. I mean, scary, but amazing. Thanks, Uraraka-san, Izuku nodded politely. Your gravity negation was the only reason I survived the fall. It was a perfect tactical assist. Tactical assist? She giggled. You sound so serious. If you're here to make friends, pack up and leave. The voice came from the floor. A man in a yellow sleeping bag lay in the doorway like a discarded caterpillar. He unzipped himself, revealing a disheveled man with bloodshot eyes and hair that defied gravity. Shota Aizawa. The erasure hero, Eraserhead. The class gasped, but Izuku felt a spark of recognition. He knew this hero. Not from the glossy magazines, but from the deep-dive forums on underground vigilantism. Aizawa was a hero who shunned the media. He fought in the dark. He prioritized efficiency over flash. Stain would hate the system, Izuku thought, but he might respect this man. It took you 8 seconds to quiet down, Aizawa deadpanned, standing up. Time is limited. You kids are irrational. He pulled a gym uniform out of his sleeping bag. Put these on. Head to the grounds. We're doing a quirk apprehension test. The quirk apprehension test. A test without a ceremony? Uraraka asked nervously as they gathered on the dirt field. But what about orientation? If you want to play at being friends, go to a different school, Aizawa said coldly. Here, we cut the fat. The student who ranks last in total potential will be judged hopeless and expelled immediately. Panic rippled through the class. That's not fair. Someone shouted. Natural disasters aren't fair, Aizawa countered. Villains aren't fair. Our job is to correct that unfairness. Izuku stood silently. Expulsion. It was a threat, yes. But compared to a knife to the throat in a rainy alley at 2 a.m.? It was just paperwork. He looked at his hand. He still couldn't control one for all. If he used it, he broke. If he didn't use it, he was functionally quirkless. I have to use the training, Izuku decided. Physical conditioning. Technique. Pain tolerance. Test 1, 50-meter dash. Ida and Azuri went first. Ida was a blur of engines. 3.04 seconds. Midoriya versus Bakugo. They stepped to the line. Bakugo was vibrating with competitive rage. I'm gonna leave you in the dust, Deku, he hissed. Red Eat. Go! Boom! Bakugo launched himself with explosions, flying down the track. Izuku ran. He didn't have thrusters. He didn't have speed enhancement. But he had form. Drive the knees. Elbows in. Breathe. Stain had chased him across rooftops for hours. Stain had made him sprint with weights strapped to his ankles. Bakugo crossed the line at 4.13 seconds. Izuku crossed at 7.02 seconds. It was a normal, athletic human time. But Aizawa raised an eyebrow. The boy's form was perfect. No wasted energy. No flailing. Test 2, grip strength. Izuku squeezed the device. 56 kilograms. Above average for his size, but nothing compared to Shoji's 540 kilograms. Test 3, standing long jump. Izuku cleared the sandbox not by jumping high, but by using a parkour roll upon landing to extend his distance. Test 4, repeated side steps. Izuku moved rhythmically, his feet blurring. It was the footwork of a close-quarters fighter. Dodge, weave, dodge, weave. Test 5, ball throw. This was the hurdle. Without a quirk, he would fail. Bakugo threw first. Die. An explosion sent the ball 705.2 meters. Izuku stepped into the circle. He held the ball. He had to use one for all. Just for a second. Just at the tip of his finger, he wound up. He focused the power. Smash, he threw. The ball flew. 46 meters. Huh! Izuku stared at his hand. The power had vanished right before release. I erased your quirk. Izuku turned. Aizawa stood there, his scarf floating, his hair raised, his eyes glowing red. That entrance exam was definitely not rational enough, Aizawa lectured, walking closer. Even if you have power, you can't save anyone if you become a glorified paperweight after one attack. You have zero control. Do you intend to become incapacitated and force others to save you? Aizawa asked harshly. In the past, Izuku would have crumpled. He would have stammered about trying his hardest. But the words triggered a memory. If you break yourself to save one, who saves the next 10? Stain had asked him that just a week ago. Izuku looked Aizawa in the eye. No, sir, Izuku said firmly. I intend to win. Aizawa blinked. The defiance wasn't arrogant. It was cold. Then hurry up and throw. I gave you your quirk back. Izuku turned to the circle. I can't break my arm. I need my arm for the rest of the tests. Just the finger. He channeled the power. Not into his whole arm, but into the tip of his index finger. He braced his legs, Stain's stance. He whipped his arm forward. At the last microsecond, he snapped his finger. Smash! The air cracked. The ball rocketed into the sky, piercing the clouds. Izuku gritted his teeth. His finger was purple and broken. The pain was sharp, searing. He didn't scream. He didn't cry. He simply exhaled sharply through his nose, compartmentalizing the pain. Pain is information, Stain had taught him. It tells you what is damaged. Acknowledge it, then ignore it, Mr. Aizawa, Izuku said, turning to the teacher and holding up his clenched fist, the broken finger throbbing. I can still move. Aizawa's lips curled into a terrifying grin. He didn't flinch. This kid, over 700 meters, Aizawa announced. The class erupted. He got a heroic score. Uraraka cheered. His finger looked swollen. Ida noted, concerned. Bakugo stood frozen. His brain was short-circuiting. He has a quirk? Deku? The pebble? The bug? DKU. Bakugo exploded forward, explosions popping in his palms. Tell me what the hell is going on, you bastard. You've been lying to me for years? He was fast. He was going to grab Izuku by the collar and burn him. Izuku saw him coming. Right hook lead. Emotional compromise. Opening high. Izuku didn't run. He stepped into the charge. As Bakugo reached out, Aizawa's capture scarf shot out, wrapping around Bakugo and restraining him. What the? Bakugo struggled. Don't make me use my quirk so much. Aizawa sighed, his eyes red again. I have dry eye. But Aizawa noticed something. Izuku hadn't flinched. He had shifted his weight. His left hand had drifted toward his pocket, where a weapon would be, before stopping. He had been ready to engage. He wasn't scared, Aizawa noted, releasing Bakugo. He was calculating. The afternoon hero basic training. I am here. Coming through the door like a normal person, All Might burst into the classroom, wearing his Silver Age costume. The class cheered, their anxiety from the morning melting away in the presence of the symbol of peace. Combat training, All Might announced. And for that, you need these. The wall panels opened, revealing numbered cases. Costumes. Izuku grabbed case 18. He went to the changing rooms. As he pulled on his green jumpsuit, he felt a mix of pride and shame. His mother had made this. It was modeled after All Might. The ears, the smile on the respirator. But over the last week, Izuku had made modifications. He had added heavy combat boots with reinforced steel toes, Stain's recommendation. Your legs are your engines. He had added thick, ugly knee and elbow pads over the fabric, and around his waist, he wore a utility belt. It was empty of knives, of course. But it held rolls of capture tape, a small first aid kit, and a flashlight. He pulled the hood up. The mask felt stifling. He walked out into ground beta. Looking good, everyone. All Might boomed. Uraraka walked up to him. She was wearing a tight pink and black suit. Oh, Midoriya. You look so practical. Thanks, Izuku mumbled, blushing slightly. Yours is very efficient for movement. Shall we begin? All Might pulled a script. The scenario: villains have hidden a nuclear weapon in the hideout. The heroes must secure it or capture the villains within the time limit. He drew lots. Team A, heroes Izuku Midoriya Ochako Uraraka. Team D, villains Katsuki Bakugo Tenya Ida. The air in the control room grew heavy. Everyone knew the history. This is destiny, Bakugo grinned, his mask making him look demonic. I get to crush you legally. Izuku stared at him through the eye holes of his mask. I won't be a punching bag anymore, Kaken. Battle trialed the building. The timer started. Izuku and Uraraka entered through a window on the first floor. The building was a maze of concrete pillars and dark corridors. We need a plan, Uraraka whispered. Bakugo is going to come for you. I know, Izuku said. His voice was different. He had dropped into his night voice, quiet, clipped, authoritative. He'll leave Ida to guard the weapon. He wants to hurt me. He's arrogant. So we avoid him? No, Izuku said, stopping at a corner. We can't avoid him. He's too fast and his blasts cover too much area in these narrow halls. If he finds us, he pins us. Izuku looked at the ceiling. I'm going to draw his fire, Izuku said. You go around. Use your quirk to float the debris I create to make cover. Boom. A wall exploded down the hall. Smoke and dust billowed out. Bakugo emerged from the smoke, gauntlets glowing. Found you. He didn't hesitate. He launched a right hook, fueled by an explosion. Uraraka, go! Izuku shoved her toward a side corridor. Izuku turned to face the blast. He always opens with a right straight. Izuku ducked. He didn't just duck, he dropped his level completely, sliding forward on his knees under Bakugo's arm. Bakugo's explosion scorched the air where Izuku's head had been a fraction of a second ago. As Izuku slid past, he didn't punch. He reached out and grabbed Bakugo's outstretched arm. He used Bakugo's own momentum. Stain Lesson 12, use the fulcrum. Izuku yanked the arm down while sweeping his leg into the back of Bakugo's knee. Slam! Bakugo hit the concrete floor hard. The breath left him in a wheeze. Izuku didn't stop. He rolled to his feet, putting distance between them. What the? Bakugo scrambled up, his eyes wide with shock. You, since when do you know judo? I've been analyzing you for years, Kaken, Izuku said calmly. In the notebook. Volume 10, page 14. You overcommit on your right hook because you rely on the explosion to intimidate. Shut up, Bakugo screamed and raged. He fired an explosion at the floor to propel himself forward, spinning in the air to deliver a kick. Izuku dodged again, barely. The heat singed his mask. In the observation room, the class was stunned. He's holding his own? Kirishima gasped. Against Bakugo? He's not using his quirk, Todoroki noted quietly. He's just fighting. Back in the hallway, the fight was brutal. Bakugo was raw power. He was blowing chunks out of the walls. He was screaming. Izuku was a ghost. He was using the pillars for cover. He was sliding, jumping, rolling. He was leading Bakugo away from the stairs, but he was getting tired. The heat was sapping his stamina. And Bakugo was adapting. You're just running away, you coward! Bakugo yelled, cornering Izuku in a dead-end hallway. I'm not running, Izuku panted. He reached into his utility belt. Bakugo raised his gauntlet. He pulled the pin. Young Bakugo, stop! All Might's voice crackled over the comms. That attack could kill him indoors. He won't die if he dodges. Bakugo fired. A massive tunnel of flame roared down the hallway. Izuku's eyes widened. He couldn't dodge this. Power. Use the power. Izuku clenched his fist. He didn't have time to worry about breaking bones. Smash! He punched the air. The pressure wave from One for All met the explosion. Boom! The forces collided, blowing out the windows and shaking the entire building. The floor cracked. Smoke filled the corridor. Bakugo stood panting, grinning wildly. Gotcha! A figure burst through the smoke. It wasn't a broken mess. It was Izuku. His sleeve was shredded, his arm purple and useless, but he was moving. He vaulted off the wall, verticality, and landed on Bakugo's shoulders. Capture tape. Izuku whipped the white tape around Bakugo's neck and arms. He tightened it, pulling back. It was a chokehold. Bakugo gagged, thrashing. He tried to fire an explosion backward, but Izuku had pinned his wrists together. Damn you! Bakugo wheezed. You look at the enemy, Izuku whispered in his ear, his voice sounding eerily like the hero killer. You focus on the kill. You forgot the mission. Izuku tightened the tape. He kicked off Bakugo's back, sending the blonde crashing face first into the floor, bound like a turkey. Uraraka! Now! Izuku shouted into his comms. 5 floors up. Uraraka used the distraction. Ida was listening to the explosion, to float herself over the weapon and hug it. Secure! All Might shouted, his voice sounding shaken. Hero team wins! Izuku slumped against the wall, clutching his broken arm. He looked at Bakugo, who was struggling against the tape, screaming incoherent curses. Izuku didn't feel triumphant. He felt cold. He had won. But he had fought like a soldier, not a superhero. The debriefing. The class was silent as Team A and Team D returned to the monitoring room. Izuku had been to Recovery Girl and back. His arm was in a sling. Well, All Might coughed, looking uncomfortable. Who can tell me the MVP of this match? I can. Momo Yayorozu raised her hand. Go ahead, young Yayorozu. It was Ida, she stated. Eh? Uraraka blinked. Ida was the only one who adapted to the role properly, Momo explained. Bakugo acted on a personal grudge and endangered the structure. Uraraka let her guard down late in the game. She turned her sharp gaze to Izuku and Midoriya. She paused. While his tactics were effective, they were excessive. The use of the capture tape as a garrote? The baiting of a lethal attack? He fought with a level of brutality that suggests he was trying to neutralize a threat permanently, not capture a villain in a school exercise. It was efficient, but terrifying. Izuku looked at the floor. Stain would say she's soft. But she's right. This is Hero's school, not the streets. Also, she added, breaking your own arm is reckless. All Might nodded slowly. A fair assessment. But, survival is key. Young Midoriya faced overwhelming firepower and won. That counts for something. All Might looked at Izuku. The boy wasn't smiling. He was analyzing Yaoyorozu's critique, nodding slowly. He's not celebrating, All Might thought. He's taking notes. He's learning how to hide the wolf better. That night the abandoned district, the rain had returned. It seemed to follow Izuku these days. He sat on a crate in the alleyway, nursing his healed arm. It ached in the damp weather. A newspaper fluttered past in the wind. The headline screamed, Hero Killer Strikes in Hosu, 4 more pros hospitalized. Izuku stared at the paper. Clank. Stain dropped from the shadows. He looked worse for wear. His bandages were fresh, stained with red. He smelled of copper and ozone. You survived your first week, Stain noted, leaning against the wall. I fought Bakugo, Izuku said quietly. The explosive brat? Yes. I beat him. Stain actually chuckled. Good. Did you break him? I tied him up, Izuku said. I used the tape. I used your takedowns. But, Izuku stood up, holding the newspaper. Stain. This? He pointed to the headline. Native. He was just a patrol hero. Why did you hurt him? He took bribes, Stain said instantly. He ignored calls from low-income areas. He is a parasite. Did he deserve to die? Izuku asked, his voice rising. He is not dead. He is in the hospital. He has time to reflect on his failures. You're escalating, Izuku stepped closer. The fear was still there, but his conviction was growing stronger. You told me you were culling the worst, but now you're attacking anyone who doesn't fit your perfect standard. That's not justice. That's a tantrum. Stain's eyes narrowed. He stepped off the wall. The killing intent flared, sharp and cold. Watch your tongue, boy. I am your teacher, and I am the one who is going to stop you, Izuku said. He didn't back down. I'm learning at UA. I'm seeing real heroes. They aren't all fake. All Might isn't fake. I'm not fake. Stain stared at him. He looked at the boy's defiant stance, the stance Stain himself had taught him. The killing intent vanished. No, Stain agreed softly. You are not fake. He walked past Izuku, heading toward the deeper shadows. That is why I tolerate your insolence. You are the control group in my experiment, Midoriya. Prove to me that a hero can exist within that corrupt system. Prove to me that UA won't rot your soul. Stain paused. But be warned. The League of Villains, they are making moves. They are children playing with guns. They have no conviction. When they strike, and they will strike, do not rely on your teachers to save you. Stain looked back, his eyes gleaming. Unleash the wolf. Or you will die. He vanished. Izuku stood alone in the rain. He touched the utility belt he was still wearing under his hoodie. The League of Villains, he had a bad feeling. A very bad feeling. The next day, UA cafeteria. Midoriya! Over here! Uraraka waved. Ida was sitting with her, chopping the air as he explained the nutritional value of rice. Izuku walked over with his tray. He sat down. You seem intense today, Deku-kun, Uraraka said, tilting her head. Just thinking, Izuku smiled. It was a genuine smile this time. About what it means to be a hero. Suddenly, an alarm blared. Security Level 3 breach. All students please evacuate. Panic erupted. Students screamed and ran. In the crush of the hallway, Izuku was shoved against the glass. He looked out the window. The press had broken through the gate. It's just the media! Someone shouted. But Izuku wasn't looking at the reporters. He was looking at the gate itself. The massive steel barrier had been disintegrated. Dust. That wasn't the press, Izuku realized, his blood running cold. Reporters don't turn steel into dust. He remembered Stain's warning. They are children playing with guns. Izuku gripped the window ledge until his knuckles turned white. The wolf inside him woke up. The peace was over. The hunt was beginning.